Sheila Marie Evans, a sweet little 3-year-old girl. She was helpless. She was brutally raped and killed by Ronald Phillips, her teenage mother's boyfriend, in 1993. In some cases, capital punishment is the only way to get proper justice for families who have lost loved ones. In today's society, there are more and more crimes being committed, many of these crimes against small, helpless children. In 32 states, capital punishment is legal. After doing much research and speaking to many people around me about their views about capital punishment, I have been thoroughly impressed with those who agreed and also countered my thoughts. To understand capital punishment, we must know in what cases it is considered, how it is carried out, and the costs associated with pro-life and pro-capital punishment, both monetary costs as well as the cost to the victim and the perpetrator's families. There are so many different cases in which the death penalty is considered, but they all have one thing in common: murder. Murder related to rape or child molestation, 18 U.S.C. 2245. Also murder during a hostage taking, 18 U.S.C. 1203. The only time that capital punishment is even brought into the picture is if murder or espionage is on the table. The jury also decides who gets capital punishment and who does not. Their case gets brought to a trial, a grand trial. They have a grand jury, and the jury can take anywhere from days to 22 minutes to decide who gets the death penalty and who gets life in prison with or without parole. Trials can take months and months and months and months and months. And at the end of the trial, that's when the jury deliberates and comes up with a guilty, not guilty verdict. The costs associated with capital punishment actually surprised me a lot. For me, being pro-capital punishment for certain circumstances, mostly including children, this was definitely a shocker for me. I always thought that capital punishment was less expensive than housing fugitives in penitentiaries until they die. Well, I was wrong. The cost for death, so the cost for capital punishment, on average is $1.12 million. This number is from 2015, more than the general population inmates. People that are on death row have more expensive lawyers, more expensive appeals, and more in-depth investigations that drag on and on and on, and they have humongous drawn-out trials. So, as you can imagine, all of those things cost a lot of money. The cost for life in prison, $740,000. So you can imagine it costs about $2 million on average for someone to receive capital punishment. So, cost to the families of the victims. For families who have lost someone due to murder and or child molestation, rape, the death penalty is the only hope for closure and justice. They lost their loved one, and the one who did it should also die. I feel for that. Being a mother, I feel for that. If someone hurt my child, took my child from me, or so much laid a finger on them sexually, I want the death penalty. Costs for the perpetrator's family. They now have to live knowing what their loved one did. They have to face life knowing that their son, their daughter, their nephew, their grandchild did what they did. They have to visit them in prison and see them in that jumpsuit and see them hurting and upset and paying for their mistake. In extreme cases, they have to watch their loved one be executed for what they did. I can't imagine being on that side of it. I can't imagine finding out that my child did something so horrible that they are up for capital punishment. I can't imagine what those families go through. Today, I explained my view of the death penalty now that I'm a mom, what offenses warrant the death penalty, who decides the perpetrator's fate, and the costs associated with the death penalty. Now, if your child was the victim of such horrid acts and your child was taken from you, which would you choose?